You guys see where I am in my gym, my little home gym. It hasn't been used in a long, long time, and there's stuff all over the place. This right here, paper towels from Costco. It is what it is. I could have put up a banner or a green screen. Microphone in there like so. But sometimes you gotta keep it real. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I don't know about you. I'm really not, I really find it so exhausting to pretend at this big age that I'm at that it is so much easier to just like let the ugly and the messy and just I would rather that than to show up in a manner to impress people or to put on airs, right? And somebody might say, well, hey, Lakitha, you gotta play along to get along. And it's just at least for the end of the year, I understand. I'm meeting the CEO of our organization this week to talk to him about the James House. And there's a capacity of like, well, what are you gonna wear and how are you and da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, sort of. Um, sort of. I don't know. Pray for me that I figure it out. I see other people that put on airs, and I think maybe people have a better tolerance for it than me. But anyway, this is what's going on in the back of here. Who am I? I am 3+Kei. I'm here to encourage you. Speaking of priorities in life, I'm here to encourage you to prioritize the Lord, your physical health, and persistent education. Hey, lovely. And this space right here, baby, baby. And if you don't know, now you know. It's called the Secret Heart Club. Puppy. I even brought this over here. It's called the Secret Heart Club. This space, this live stream specifically is for the oddball Christians and the Christ curious to come together in community, ask you questions, talk about whatever it is that makes you go. All right? Just make sure we bring it back to the Lord at the end of the day. Hey, Parker. There's even a theme song. Y'all ready? If you know it, go ahead and sing along. Here we go. Welcome to the Secret Heart Club, everyone. Does our part to bring love, be loved. Hey, we love Jesus at the Secret Heart Club. All right. Did you know? Okay, so you notice I'm back in the old spot. And I started this saying, it's been so long that there's paper towels just sitting here. It's been so long I've been in my home gym. It's been so long since I've live streamed because let me tell you, I dropped the ball for a little bit and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get these steps in one way or another. So I've been live streaming on my walk pad from another room. Don't want you to see that room. I threw a green screen up. Today I got my exercise in. It felt good. I threw out my back last week, trying to do the absolute most. Who am I trying to impress? I don't know, but I lifted too much weight and threw my back out. I was out of commission. I was literally walking hunched over for a week. And today was the first day back in the gym. And I thought to myself, holy cow, I love this. I love being alone. because I don't want to stumble anybody, there's very few places where I can just go ahead and blast my gangster rap. Go ahead and judge me. I don't care. And this private gym is one of those places. Poppy says, paper towels are the real OG of the stream. I would say Costco has me hanging out with like 30 rolls of paper towels. What y'all got? What y'all got in the cut? 50 rolls of toilet paper, baby. Mess with me. Today, that's what I was just about to get into, Betcore. This is my live stream for the Oddball Christians and the Christ Curious, Betcore. And so I usually start out talking a little bit about my day. Jump into the conversation. And then we're going to get into this church crawl that we went to today. We went to a new church. Poppy says, I got 4 pounds of coffee. Shout out. Sam's Club and Sherry. Sherry's like an OG too. Sherry came in maybe like 4 or 5 months into it, but Sherry pops in and out. We love Sherry. Okay, so what's a church crawl? This is definitely going to be a 2-parter. Look at these notes. Baby, y'all ain't got notes like these. Y'all ain't got, and then I had to even put it back over here. Y'all ain't got notes like these. I got notes for days and days, baby. Sherry says, back at ya. Hey, Damien. Poppy says, no, I got the coffee at Amazon. We don't have a Costco or Sam's Club. I'm mad about it. Oh my gosh. I heart Costco real bad. Yeah, I go to Costco like 4 times a year, and it's like, anyway, I'm trying to get better about it. What is a church crawl? Well, it's a longer story, but I live in Montana. I did what I was supposed to do. I came here and I established a home church. There is nothing wrong with that church, and I would love to maybe interview the pastors or something at some time. However, I started to work with a church member at a Christian organization. And this particular, when you guys hear me talk about Susan, she's who I envision, and basically a woman who thought I was too happy. Another term might be like a Karen type, you know what I mean? Sabotaged, lied, all this, and so they promoted in the church, back at church, they promoted her to like the director of women's ministry. And I just, there's no way I just won't be submitting to any type of your lead. Like, you are actively working against me in life and attempting to compromise my financial situation and say things about anyway. What do you do in those situations? We'll talk about it today. Actually, that's actually what this sermon was about at this church. But for me, I'm not a drama person at all. When people are like, go talk to the pastors about it. And it's like, either they already know that she's like this and they promoted her anyway due to the status she might bring to the church or whatever, right? Or they don't know, and I'm just one person saying this about her. Either way, sometimes in life you have to understand truly that, like, speaking up, you're better off to move on. And so I just left quietly. To this day, I'm still a member at that church and probably will be until I am a member at another church. And then the chickens will come home to roost because they'll call that church and be like, who's Lakitha? And they'll be like, Lakitha's fine. And we'll move on. But I care not to make dramatics over this situation. So anyway, I need to find a new church. Well, I'll tell you once again, I got I gave my life to Christ 6 years ago, and I've had a terrible experience in the church in general. I've had a few like cool things happen, but it hasn't been good. And so it really, so my faith has never wavered, but my faith in people, his people, God's people, has certainly been, toppled over again and again and again. And so I'm going to continue pursuing God's people and fellowship. Not because necessarily God tells me in scripture, but because the Holy Spirit has convicted me to do so and keep trying. And I do have wise Christians around me who encourage me to do so. And so I ended up at one church, and before I commit to that church, I just want to see what else is in town. And so it's a church crawl. There's other people like me. Everyone's invited to go to these churches with me and check them out. And I'm telling you about them as I go along. This used to be called, it's not its own series. Well, it's not its own playlist, but the series was Honest Church Reviews. The series was Honest Church Reviews. And so there's a bunch of those. Damien says, I subscribe to you. Thank you. Sherry says, the closest to me is an hour and a half away. The Costco, that's terrible. Sherry says, rebuke. I know. Poppy says, I know. No, Poppy. Poppy says, I told you I can fight her. Sherry says, whenever you face opposition, you are in the will of God. Rejection, all that said, but true Christ came to bring division. Yeah, and sometimes and again, this sermon was so good because it's like sometimes when people are unrepentant, as we go down the chain of what we should do about that, they're unrepentant because they're unsaved. And that is what I'm generally saying sometimes when I'm like, that's between you and the Lord. I'm saying like, I don't see Christ in you, but maybe you are, and you just don't have the fruits that, I think I should be seeing. Ezra, hi. Poppy says, I don't do church. I like to do it with you and another guy on live. I'm not super into the church thing. Too many people, too much distraction. Well, that's a larger, I always like to say like, 7:15. I don't want to replace anybody's church. I'm no preacher or teacher. Maybe if we got Ben involved, he is really knowledgeable and I think has shown a commitment to the Lord in a way that is, what do you say, like visible or like reportable? Not to say that my track record, you could probably like dip in on me at any given moment and like, yeah, I'm probably, or not probably, I might be listening to some gangster rap or, I mean, sometimes I have some wine or, I mean, you might find me doing something like that, but I'm not, you could probably hold me to the fire, I think. Okay, so today, Ben and I went to Grace Gospel Church. Oops. I feel like this is probably going to be, because I'm talking too much. I didn't get to the point fast enough. So I might just end this and tomorrow be freaking on task. So let me tell you then. Since we've been doing the church crawl, every week I've been like, oh, this is the church. This is the church I need to be at. And so how about this? Since I'm going to tell you what the sermon was, it was tomorrow. Let me start you guys at what last night looked like. So everyone that is invited to the church crawl has my phone number, and I send them on like Monday and maybe Thursday or Friday a list of the church we're going to that Sunday, and then a list of upcoming churches so that they know and they can decide if that's what they want to do. All this week, I knew we were going to this church and did not send out any text messages. Could it have been on purpose? Because Saturday night, I texted Ben last night, and probably late, like after the live stream, maybe. I texted Ben and I was like, oh, I didn't send out any text messages. And Ben texted me back a question mark. And I was like, well, I didn't. And then I was hoping he would say no. I was like, do you want to go to church tomorrow? That's what I asked him. I didn't say what church or anything. Do you want to go to church tomorrow? And I was hoping Ben would be like, oh, I'm tired, or, something like that. He didn't. He said, yeah, I'll come. He's a dude. And so I was like, okay, well, then I texted him the information for Grace Gospel Church and the time. And so that was that. But I tried to get out of it because I didn't want to go this morning. And if I look at my behavior, I don't know if you guys do that, like evaluate yourselves. You should. Why did I make these decisions? Why did I move in this way? And like, clearly, for some reason, I didn't want to go to church. All right. But here I have a friend, which is why when we're talking about the importance of Christian friends, this is one reason why you should. If I had texted anybody else, like I don't have Christian friends really, any of my friends, they'd be like, okay, then don't go, or I'm not going with you or whatever, right? Like, okay, you made a mistake is what somebody would say. But Ben was like, yep, here we go. And was like, crap. All right, well, here we go. So that was kind of that. And then this morning, I got some potatoes boiling. This morning, I didn't want to get dressed. You usually put on some. For church, right? I landed on some tan pants, tan jeans, and a green shirt and sneakers. That's where I was this morning, and a furry. I almost reconsidered it. Let me show you this thing. My friend gave it to me. Ooh. Okay, well, it's not coming off. But it's a furry, not a fur jacket, a furry jacket. And that's what I wore to church because, I didn't really like care how I looked. Sometimes you just, and with that, can I tell you guys, sometimes you don't want to go to church. And sometimes it's like that, like go anyway, even if you're in sneakers and a furry jacket, and see what happens. Just go get your word. And Anyway, I was listening to my little music and I was in a much better mood by the time I arrived. It was it says in the heart of Missoula, but it was just kind of out of the way a little bit. I pull up on Ben and we go to the door. And Ben's like, I don't think that's the right door. And then there's another church's door called Explore Church right there. So for me, that's a wrap. Right? It's probably time to go home. We are not at the right church. Ben, however, shout out, I love Ben. There were so many times in this process that I felt like I could just go back home. Anyway, Ben's like, maybe the door's over here. And so, oh, is this boiling? Okay. So anyway, we get to the right door and I'm back in you guys got to understand, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person. So I'm back to bouncing and whatever. And so I'm smiling as we enter the door. And many times that's not really the vibe. Like you don't really want to like pop in. I feel like my mood was like, hey, here we go. And I would say probably 8 times out of 10, that's not really the vibe. Wouldn't you know? There was a woman at the top of the stairs and she was already smiling. She was already popped in. I didn't have to pop in because she was already popped up. Okay. And so we moved past her. She's like, hey, you want to, I think if Ben's in here, I think we passed 2 smiling ladies. And then the lady, she's like, do you want a program or whatever it's called, whatever this thing is called? So we took that from her. And then I noticed the lady on the stage, I don't even know what she was talking about, but she was smiling. Not in a weird, creepy way as it can go sometimes, but she was, she was telling a story or talking about something, and it looked like she was just like happy to be there. So you guys have to understand, the first 3 people we encountered at this church, Grace Gospel Church, the first 3 people we encountered literally looked happy to be there. You know, because I'm just a little solemn. And then next thing you know, some dude came out of nowhere, Marty, shout out to Marty, and introduced him. There's this whole proceeding going on. And this guy's like, hey, I'm Marty, welcome, blah, blah, blah. He came around, what, Lakita? Oh, okay. You know what I mean? And then the lady with the programs, that's his wife. We learned all this while there's a whole proceeding going on. Lady gets off the stage. The pastor's going up now. The lady who was speaking and smiling, she took the time to tell this guy in a wheelchair, like, oh, I'm so happy you're here. I have never seen people so pleased. And one thing I'm going to tell you about Grace Gospel Church, those people act like they are friends. Like they act like they know each other. Like they might call each other on a Wednesday. And I mean, there were several points in our church visit there, in our church crawl there, where I was like, that's it. I might as well hang it up. This is the church for me. I might as well. Several points. But after the first 4 people, and then the pastor's talking, some lady in the front was like trying to get clarification on when the potluck or whatever the pastor was talking about. And they're having a whole conversation. And this is the service. Can y'all go up to your pastors? Can y'all interrupt your pastor while he's talking on the stage and ask him a clarifying question? I loved that. That is what I have been looking for. Y'all like each other. I love that for them. I'm gonna wrap this up shortly because I'll just get into but that was our introduction to Grace Gospel Church. And just a flash to the end when they said, "You guys are more than welcome back." I really believe them. I believe them as something, everybody says that. Come back. Everybody says that. That's like a thing you say. They told me Marty and his wife live down the street from me, and the only reason I know that is because they told me. I am tickled. And the one last thing I'll leave you guys with, and I'm going to talk about it again tomorrow because this doesn't happen to me. So on here, I'm ThreePlusKei. In my real life, my name is Lakeitha. I call it the Sarah of Black names. It is really Lakeitha in the grand scheme of how we roll as Black folk is a really easy name. And the spelling is phonetically correct. Eitha, right? And so in occurrence, I have had in Montana and only Montana in all of my traveling. I've been all over the United States, and I have never, ever, 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 ever had somebody ask me if there's a shorter way to say my name than in Montana. That is an exclusive to Montana occurrence. I can't say Lakeitha. It's too hard. Do you have a shorter name? Only in Montana has this ever. The only time it really doesn't occur, is when I'm leading a team or I'm in a management position or a leadership position. For some reason, that Lakeitha seems to just roll off people's tongues. So I say that to say, and even if people are being polite, they'll say something like, "Oh, that's a hard name," or something like that. They'll say something about it. So one thing I did notice that was a clear standout, and it happened 4 times, is I would say my name is Lakeitha, and they would say, "Lakeitha?" Yes. And then maybe a second, "Lakeitha," just to make sure it was right. Yes. And then the one person, he had a stroke. He was like, "I'll probably," and I was like, "That's all right. We can, as long as you make an effort to say as long as you don't say something stupid." If anybody's listening to this and they think that's okay, to the person you're saying it to, you sound really dumb and racist. Don't ask people to shorten their names for you. Just learn their name. I mean, I would tell you this, if the person was about to give you $1 million or the person was your boss or something like that, you would learn their name. Treat everybody. Remember when Jesus was like, "Remember when I was in the street and I was poor and you didn't feed me? Remember when I was in jail and you didn't visit me?" Remember when Jesus was saying that? And the disciples were like, "Lord, that was never the case. What are you talking about?" And he's like, boom, just how you treat the least of them is how you would treat me. In other words, treat the janitor as you would the CEO. And one way that we can indicate basic respect toward one another is simply learning somebody's name. That's across in most cultures and societies, your name holds a lot of weight. And in America, if it's not a biblical name or an Anglo-Saxon name, sometimes people will show their distaste by pretending they don't have, they lack the intellect. Anyway, it's a lack of respect, and that's what they're trying to communicate. But 4 times at this church, hey, it's Matt. 4 times at this church, people verified my name proper. And at one point, her name was Karen, a sweet older lady. Karen came over and she put her hand on me. Karen's an older lady. Put her hand on me, and she was like, it's Lakeitha, right? And I was like, yeah. I was really surprised. And I was like, yeah, it's Lakeitha. And she said, okay. And the indication there is that she was just talking about me with somebody else. And they just wanted to make sure they got my name correct. So I've said enough so far about Grace Gospel Church. Yes, this is live. I've said enough about this church. Tomorrow I'll go into the sermon. Like I said, this is a pretty weighty sermon on Matthew 18. And it's about how you approach your church, your brother or sister in Christ in conflict. So tomorrow, 7 p.m. I know I said we're going to 7:30. I can't do it. I got to figure out how to do the 7 to 7:30 time slot. Not your problem, my problem. But I'll see you guys again tomorrow, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll go over the sermon of Grace Gospel Church. I am so tickled. I would love to go there all the time. I would, if I wasn't on a mission to test out all the churches, I think I would just stop here. So I am 3+Kei. I'm here to encourage you to pursue the smile by prioritizing the Lord, your physical health, and persistent education. And I'll talk to you later.